The Industrial and Gilded Ages, Section 4 with Ms. Lashi. Immigration. Large numbers of immigrants continued to come to the United States during the late 1800s. They were willing to work for less and for longer hours. There were both push and pull factors that contributed to the increased immigration to the United States. Push factors. Push factors that cause people to want to leave their home country are negative. For example, war, famine, poverty, unemployment, political unrest, religious persecution, censorship, etc. So push factors are things that make someone not want to stay where they're at, to make them want to leave and go to a new country. Famine is when there's not enough food. Poverty is when people aren't making enough money. Unemployment is when there's not enough jobs for people. Political unrest would be as if the government is having problems or there's a civil war or revolution. Religious persecution would be people who are being attacked for their religious views. Censorship is when the government is blocking what people can say or possibly even print. Pull factors. Pull factors are good things in other countries that make people want to move there. For example, peace, political stability, employment opportunities, religious freedom, freedom of speech, etc. So these are going to be positive things that are pulling people to a new country, that are drawing them to move to that country. Political stability would mean that the government is stable, that there is not unrest, that there's not a revolution, there's not a civil war going on. Employment opportunities would mean that there are lots of jobs available for people. Religious freedom, you could practice what religion you want. Freedom of speech, you could say what you want or how you feel. So pull factors are good things that are going to draw people away from their home country and make them want to take that leap and move to a new country. Hope for a better future. Immigrants to the United States were hoping for a better future for themselves and their families. They were in search of the American dream. Often they were escaping famine, wars, poverty, and persecution in their home countries. So they had push factors that were pushing them out of their home countries, like famine and war. And they had pull factors that were pulling them to the United States, like job opportunities and a stable political environment. Immigration centers. Immigrants were processed through facilities at Angel, Ellis, and Galveston Islands. Immigrants who traveled through Ellis and Galveston Islands were mostly from Europe. Immigrants who went through Angel Island were mostly from Asia. So if you look at this map, we can see it's immigration to the United States. We have people coming from Scandinavia, Russia, other European countries, Germany, Italy, Great Britain, Ireland, etc. And they are all coming to the eastern coast of the United States. And that's where Ellis Island is located, as well as Galveston. Galveston is the same island that we're thinking of that's down in Texas, just south of Houston. Ellis Island is located off of New York City. So they're both very close to major economic centers. People coming from Asia will migrate to the western part of the United States, and that's where Angel Island was located, just off of California. Immigration process. Immigrants were forced to go through physical exams. If they were found to be unhealthy, they were sent back. They also had to go through IQ tests. Family members were often separated during the process. So when they got to Ellis, Angel, or Galveston Islands, they were kept in this immigration processing facility for days, weeks, sometimes months at a time. If you failed the physical exam, if let's say you were ill or you are unable to take care of yourself, they would send you back at your own cost. So you just traveled all this way to immigrate to the United States and they're saying, nope, sorry, you got to go back. We don't want you here. And that was again with the same with the unhealthy part. IQs are your intellectual ability. So if you failed an IQ test, then they could send you back for that as well. And women would be kept in one area, men would be kept in another. Sometimes children would be kept isolated. It was families essentially being torn apart and separated in these processing facilities, and they were extremely I don't want to say inhumane, but not exactly the way we would have pictured today's society handling immigrants. It could have been done in a little bit more of a humane manner. Ethnic neighborhoods. Many immigrants settled into ethnic neighborhoods. These were neighborhoods where people from the same ethnicity or country settled. For example, Little Italy and Chinatown. In Little Italy, you would have a large Italian population, and in Chinatown, you would have a large Asian or Chinese population. The reason why people settled into these ethnic neighborhoods is it gave them a sense of home. They were living near people who practiced the same culture, possibly the same religion, they spoke the same language as them. It was a comfort zone for them. And so they became isolated, kind of self-segregation if you look at it like that. But it was all about basically being with who they know or like-minded people or like people. Immigrant struggles. Immigrants struggled to survive. Skilled workers were able to start their own businesses. Unskilled workers were forced to work for low wages and long hours in factories and other industries. So, skilled labor would be somebody who knows a skill. For example, how to, let's say, make a shoe or sew a dress. That would be a skilled labor. If you did not have a skill, a product that you knew how to make, then you would go work in the factories. You'd work for very poor wages, for long hours, and horrible working conditions, and it was not ideal at all. Sweatshops. Unskilled immigrants worked in factories that were run like sweatshops. They were paid low wages and worked long hours. The working conditions were dangerous. Injuries and death were common. So, in these factories, the majority of the factory owners did not care about the people that work for them. Clearly, you could tell that by the low wages that they were being paid. But they were also working in very dangerous conditions with heavy machinery. And this also extended into the mines as well, where they were mining for coal and other minerals. But they didn't care if somebody got hurt because if somebody lost a finger or a hand and they couldn't perform their job, they just kick them out and get rid of them, and they get another immigrant coming off the boat to replace them. And there was no workers' compensation. They didn't have to pay for the injuries or the medical bills for their employees. So there literally was no concern for the care and safety of their employees. Now, granted, I want to point out that there are some factories and factory owners who did to take into account and care about their workers and the safety of their workers, but they were a minority. The vast majority of factory owners were all about making a quick profit, and they didn't care if people got hurt or not.